Today's topic is postural reflexes. What is postural reflex? Now, this reflex help to maintain body in upright and balanced position. They also provides adjustment necessary to maintain stable posture during voluntary activity. So basically this reflex is mainly responsible for maintaining posture. Now what is the reflex pathway or reflex arc of postural reflexes? So afferent pathway come from eyes, vestibular apparatus and proprioceptors. Center of this reflex is brainstem and spinal cord. An efferent pathway consists of alpha motor neuron supplying the various skeletal muscle which form the effector organ. Type of postural reflexes: static reflexes and statokinetic reflexes. Static reflexes are elicited by gravitational pull and involve sustained contraction of muscle. Statokinetic reflexes are elicited by oscillatory displacement of the body and they maintain stable postural background for voluntary activity. It is also known as a phasic reflexes. Static reflexes, they are primarily involved in adjustment to displacement produced by gravity. So there are three types of static reflex: local static, segmental static and general static reflexes. So first is local static reflex. It exerts their effect on same limb from which the stimulus was initiated. It includes reflex control of antigravity muscle tone, positive supporting reaction and negative supporting reaction. Reflex control of antigravity muscle tone. So we have already discussed stretch reflex. So it is an example of this type of reflex. It controls the muscle tone in those extensor muscle which keep the body upright, antigravity muscle. So muscle tone in antigravity muscle is best illustrated in decerebrate preparation or decerebrate animal. Now what is decerebrate animal? It is an animal in whom the brain stem is transected at intercollicular level, means between superior and inferior colliculi. Okay, so this is decerebrate preparation. Okay, so in this type of animal there is a development of decerebrate rigidity in which there is a hypertonicity in extensor muscles. Okay, so reflex control of antigravity muscle tone, which is basically there is a development of stretch reflex, and this reflex is helpful for maintaining posture. Positive supporting reaction, it is characterized by simultaneous reflex contraction of both extensor group of muscle and flexor group of muscle of a limb and converting limb into solid rigid pillar. So the stabilization of ankle joint in intermediate position is possible by simultaneous contraction of extensor and flexor of foot. So now afferent impulses from the stimulated skin of sole. So there are touch and pressure receptor are there. Okay, they are stimulated, and from muscle there is a proprioceptors, muscle spindle, cause a reflex contraction of both flexor and extensor muscle acting on ankle joint, and that's why it converts the leg and ankle joint into one solid pillar. Okay, so in this figure you can see this figure B. Okay, so there is a dorsiflexion at foot produces forward fall, and C, there is a plantar flexion of foot due to contraction of gastrocnemius muscle and there is a backward fall. Okay, and in A, okay, figure A, so here there is a positive supporting reaction. Okay, what happened here? There is a stabilization of ankle joint. How? By contraction, simultaneous contraction of both the group, flexor group as well as extensor group of muscle. Okay, so it is known as a positive supporting reaction, and due to this positive supporting reaction, okay, we are able to stand on the floor. Now negative supporting reaction, it refers to disappearance of positive supporting reaction. Okay, so when we move from standing position, okay, so it is disappearance of positive supporting reaction, and it is initiated by stretch of extensor muscles, and this helps the limb to be used for activities other than supporting the body weight. Segmental static reflex, it is characterized by bilateral reflex response when stimulus is applied to one limb. Okay, so here stimulus is applied to one limb, but there is a response is bilateral in both the limb. Example is cross extensor reflex response. As we know that it is a component of withdrawal reflex, we already discussed this thing. Okay, cross extensor reflex. So in this strong stimulus to one limb produces flexion, and in ipsilateral limb, and in extension in contralateral limb. Okay, so when we apply a strong stimulus to one limb, so it is known as ipsilateral, same side. Okay, so in same side or in ipsilateral limb there is a flexion, and in opposite side or we can say in contralateral limb there is a extension. So what is the role of cross extension reflex in posture, control of posture? So in lower limb, this reflex allow one limb to support the body while other is raised off the ground. Okay, so it plays important role during walking. So it is a segmental static reflex. So we already discussed this cross extension reflex. Okay, so this is ipsilateral side, same side. Here we apply a stimulus. Okay, so there is a contraction of flexor group of muscle and inhibition of extensor group of muscle because of involvement of inhibitory interneuron. Okay, and in opposite side there is a totally opposite effect. In contralateral limb there is a inhibition of flexor group of muscle and contraction of extensor group of muscle. Okay, so this contralateral limb is mainly responsible for maintaining posture. Now general static reflex. General static reflexes are characterized by generalized effect from the many muscle group in the body in response to a stimulus that arises at one side of the body. For example, numerous postural adjustment occurs in response to change in position of head. Okay, so when there is a change in head position, there is a numerous postural adjustment occurs. Now these reflexes can be divided into three groups: attitudinal or statotonic reflex, long loop stretch reflex, and a writing reflex. Okay, so first we will discuss attitudinal or statotonic reflex. So it is initiated when attitude of body is changed. So when where attitude of body is changed. For example, while standing on the inclined plane. Okay, so there is a change in attitude of the body, and in this condition this reflex is developed. So these reflex are of two types: tonic labyrinthine and tonic neck reflex. So what is tonic labyrinthine reflex? These reflexes are produced in response to alteration in position of head relative to horizontal plane. Okay, for example, while standing on a inclined plane, there is a change in position of head, okay, in reference to and relative to horizontal plane. This reflex decreases or increases the tone of skeletal muscle of limbs in accordance with the attitude of head. Now this reflex, tonic labyrinthine reflex, stimulus for this reflex is gravity. Receptors are otolith organ which is present in labyrinthine apparatus or vestibular apparatus. Afferents are vestibular nerves, center vestibular and reticular nuclei which is present in medulla oblongata. Efferents formed by descending tract, vestibulospinal and reticulospinal. And reflex response is effective in extensor muscle. So these are the responses in this reflex. When quadruped stand on an inclined plane in such a manner that its head sets tilted to right. Okay, so in this figure you can see figure A. Okay, when head is tilted to right side. Okay, so what is the reflex response? Left limb flexed and right limb extended. Okay, so this is the reflex response when head tilted to right. When quadruped means quadruped animal stand on a inclined plane. Okay, now another response when quadruped stand on inclined plane in such a manner that head tilted to backwards. Okay, here in this figure B you can see head tilted to backwards. Okay, so what is the reflex response? Forelimb are flexed and hind limb extended. Okay, forelimb are flexed and hind limb are extended. Okay, so this is tonic labyrinthine reflex. Now tonic neck reflexes. These reflexes are produced in response to alteration in position of head relative to the body. Okay, alteration of head, but it is relative to the body. Stimulus is stretch of the neck muscle. Receptors are Pacinian corpuscle which is present in ligament of cervical joint. Okay, which is known as a atlanto-occipital joint. And another receptor is muscle spindle of neck muscle. Center is medulla oblongata. Efferents are formed by corticospinal tract. Reflex response is depending upon the position of head in relation to the body is. So these are the response, reflex response. Ventroflexion means turning down. Okay, figure A of head causes flexion of forelimb and extension of hind limb. Okay, and when there is a dorsiflexion, okay, turning up, here there is a extension of forelimb and flexion of hind limb. Now another response, turning of head sideways. Okay, figure B towards the right or left produces a flexion of the ipsilateral limb and extension of contralateral limb. So in figure B, when neck is flexed to left side. Okay, so in this figure you can see neck is flexed to left side. Then what happened? On ipsilateral side means on the same side there is a flexion of limb, and on opposite side or contralateral side there is a extension. Okay, now combined response of tonic neck and labyrinthine reflexes. On dorsiflexion of head, a labyrinthine impulses produce increased tone in extension of all forelimbs, while impulses from neck exchange forelimbs and flex the hind limbs. So actual result observed is extension of forelimb and little change in hind limb. On ventroflexion of head, a labyrinthine impulses produce increased tone in flexor of all the forelimbs, and impulses from neck flex the forelimbs and extend the hind limbs. So actual result is flexion of forelimbs and little change in hind limbs. Now role of tonic neck and labyrinthine reflexes in animal and in the man. What are the differences? So in quadruped animal, tonic neck and labyrinthine reflexes occur when standing on inclined plane. When animals standing on the inclined plane, not while standing on a level plane. Okay, so these reflexes develop only when animals stand on the inclined plane. But in man, tonic labyrinthine reflex is active during the erect posture. In erect posture, the vestibular apparatus is thrown about 30-degree backwards. Okay, so this result in slight flexion of upper limbs and extension of lower limb. But when head is tilted to 30-degree forward, then labyrinthine reflexes is, but the flexion of neck triggers the tonic neck reflex, which has the same effect on the limbs. Okay, so this is about the tonic neck and labyrinthine reflexes. Thank you. Next lecture will be on long loop stretch reflex.